how impressive. How many of y'all start seeds now? Any of y'all starting seeds? How many of y'all started with a light heart? You have a light heart under a light? Okay, very good, very good. That's going to be my stressful point today. I'm going to stress it and stress it and stress it. But anyway, before we get too started, I'd just like once again go over my books that I have. When I started, and I'm sure probably when Novaline started, there was no internet, no way, so you would try to grow these seeds, and there'd be these long leggy things reaching for the sun, and you'd be like, I have no idea, where did I go wrong? And it was hard to find information, so I turned to Burpee, Parks, and a seed company to get my information from the very beginning. So I'm not promoting them totally, but that's just where I started with. So most of my books are either from Parks or Burpee, and I don't even know if they're even still in production. But anyway, the first one I got was from Burpee, which was a seed starter book, and I'll have these laying out afterwards if y'all want to come and look at them. And this one I got a lot of good information about getting it started, and that's when I first learned that my seedlings, where I was going wrong was they weren't getting enough light, and that's where I first learned this. This one, and then just want to say I'm not advocating Burpee or Parks, because in the back they have a encyclopedia of all their seeds that they have and how to grow them, all the information, a little bit more than what's on the back of the seed package. So anyway, I've used it a lot, even with other seed companies, but that one, so this one is very good. This one is another Burpee one that I bought second. It gives a lot of good information. Again, in the back, it has the seed encyclopedia on how to grow, and this is more geared toward vegetables. So that was another good resource for me when there wasn't the internet. And I would each season when I would take my seed packet, look it up in my book, because I didn't dare want to take my book outside in the greenhouse, and I would write the information, the extra information on the back of the seed package, so when I took it out, I wasn't getting my book all dirty. And this one is a Parks one, which was along the same line. It gives you information, but the encyclopedia in the back is mostly what Park Seeds sells, in their company. And then when I became a master gardener, the ladies from Huntsville that came, those of you who are master gardeners, the ladies that come for propagation, for the propagation class, highly recommended this book. I don't know if they still do. Those of you who recently Mindy, when you took the propagation class, did they recommend this book? They may not be anymore. Anyway, and this is a very good book. It does give a few general on how to grow. It does have an encyclopedia in the back of it. This also gets very technical if you want to get technical. Those of you who know me know I don't like that. So I just like to go out there and plan it. But if you want to get very technical on the biology and all of that, this is a good book for, it's a general book. So anyway, like I said, I'll leave those there. If you want to look at them later. Another excellent resource, which I plug over and over again, if you do not get Texas Gardener Magazine, you really need to get it. This is an excellent magazine. It's a magazine for Texas. You will get nothing of Massachusetts or Rhode Island or any of those states. It is strictly for Texas. And any variety that they have in here, they always take a vegetable or an herb and concentrate on it for a month. You know, each month take something, you know, like how to grow oregano or something like that. They'll specialize a plant. But this is an excellent magazine. If you're a master gardener, I think you get 25% or 20% off the subscription. But in order to do that, you have to go through the Texas Master Gardener website, not through Texas Gardener. But anyway, this is an excellent magazine, excellent. Another magazine that I dearly love, if you can afford anything in here, although I do buy stuff out here. If you're not familiar with Gardener Supply, they just have any little new trinket or this is where I got my light card. I bought my light card through Gardener Supply. And so it's an excellent, if you're not getting this this is not really a magazine, it's a sale catalog. Thank you, Melinda. But I really do like it, and I get a lot of good ideas. You can get some ideas and make them do the same thing a little bit cheaper, and then sometimes I just pay the price and buy it. So anyway, I just wanted, those are some resources for you if you don't know where to turn. Of course, the internet is a wealth of information. When I got started, there was no internet. So, all right. Okay, to own a bit of ground, to scratch it with a hoe, to plant seeds and watch renewal of life. This is the commonest delight of the race, the most satisfaction thing a man can do. So I always like to start or end my programs with a quote. So anyway, why should you grow your own seed? Why should you do it? You know, for early harvest is one of the main things a lot of people do. You can get your seeds started early, and if you have a way to protect them, then they're ready to go in the garden. And then you're planting a nice big plant when after the frost date, when you can plant it out. Now is the time to start your tomatoes, actually maybe a tad bit late, to start your tomatoes and your peppers, if you have a way to keep them from freezing. So I'm fixing to get mine started. I normally start mine at the end of December, so it's not real. Have you started yours, Novaline?
I think it's too early.
You think it's too early? Okay, so Novaline thinks it's too early.
I'm glad that Bobo started. We planted from seed about a month ago.
It depends on how hard it is for you to take care of.
Right. So generally what I do is I'll plant them I'll just plant a bunch of them, which you'll see later on, in a tray, and then when they get true leaves on them, I'll put them in a 4x4. That's when they go out into, or a 4-inch pot. That's when they'll go out into the greenhouse. I have better luck taking it from the 4-inch pot, planting it into a gallon for 2 or 3 weeks before I plant it out in the garden. So when I plant my tomato plants, they're up like this. They just have a better chance of making it. You buy the little 4-inch pots in the nursery. How many of you do that? Plant them out in the garden right after, and they don't, or even the smaller little ones that have 4 or 6 to a 6-pack. If you would take those and plant them in a bigger container for a little while, you'd be surprised what a healthier plant that you'll end up having. Greater variety, you know, your stores are going to grow what they can get out, you know, the fastest, what, you know, used to you never could find heirlooms. Of course, that's getting better, that you can find heirlooms now. But you have a bigger variety of tomatoes that you can plant, colors of flowers. I mean, like impatiens. You would be surprised how many different colors and patience there are than pink, white, coral that's sold in the nurseries. Strong and healthier seedlings, which I have some pictures and you will see that. I mean, my stems are like, I call my tomato plants little oak trees. I mean, just the healthier, much healthier stems, and if you grow them yourself. And there you go, strong and healthier seedlings. Cost saving, you know, seeds have gone up and shipping and handling is ridiculous. So, I don't know, that may be catching up with each other. Satisfaction of taking that little bitty seed and you watching it just curl up out of the ground to going out there and picking a squash off your plant. I mean, the satisfaction is incredible when you realize, oh my God, I grew that from this little bitty seed. And enjoyment. It is, I love growing things from seed. Of course, I love propagating too, but it's just so much fun just to go out there and there's some days you see a difference from the morning to the evening. On some plants, you can actually see a big difference on how much they've grown that day. Okay, seeds. Take a look at seeds. They come in all shapes and sizes. Hard, smooth, rigid, and wispy. That's another thing. Oh my God, I love seeds and seed pods. I love just to look at different types of seeds. I mean, they're just, once again, it's just incredible that this little bitty seed, you know, grows into, you know, a plant. It's just crazy. Now, the types of seeds. So you need to know, if you're going to grow from seeds, you need to know the types of seeds that there are. So you have organic. So if it's organic seeds, it has to be grown in compliance with the USDA standards. And it cannot be grown with harmful chemicals. Everybody pretty well knows that. Non-GMO. Seeds that are not genetically modified, but it doesn't mean that they are organically grown, which I think that could confuse you. Just because it says non-GMO doesn't mean that you got an organic seed. So, you know, you can kind of get that confused when you're first starting out. So just remember, you know, we'll get down to that. Heirloom, a variety of seeds, plants that have been passed down for generations. They're open pollinated, but they can be organically grown or they don't have to be organically grown. Just because they're an heirloom doesn't mean that you have to grow it organically. So, a hybrid is a controlled cross-breeding of two plants to create a new variety. They are not genetically modified. So, seeds cannot be saved because they will go back to the plant that they were, one of the plants that they were crossing them with. So a hybrid also can be confusing, you know, if you're growing seeds. So I do grow some hybrids, you know, because that's where you kind of come up with your pretty colors and stuff sometimes. A lot of times, though, your hybrids don't smell. You give that up. But GMO is a genetically modified organism. Now, this is scary to me when you, the genetic makeup is altered to exhibit traits that are not normally theirs. So, you know, you just completely have another organism completely. So, anyway. Seeds look lifeless before you plant them, but they are actually alive. I mean, look at that little sprout. I mean, that inside every seed is a living plant. So you don't think about seeds as being living, but they are. Seeds carry on respiration. They absorb oxygen. They give off carbon dioxide, and they absorb water from the air. So they're just sitting there, you know, just maintaining them little selves till you plant them and give them moisture, and then they're ready to go. Seeds need a certain amount of moisture to convert stored carbohydrates into food, and seeds are completely self-contained. So they have enough energy to get themselves to true leaves. So you don't need to fertilize them or any. So everything they've got right in that embryo, they've got everything in there that they need to get to true leaves. Okay, now then, so what do you plant a seed in? And this is important. It's not as important as light, we'll get there, but it is important so that your seeds don't sit there and rot. So you need to be sure that when you're planting your seeds, that you plant them in a soilless mix. And that's so that it just isn't, you got this little bitty seed in this flower pot, and say, most of the time it's plastic, and it's just going to hold so much moisture because the seed doesn't have roots yet or anything to help suck up that moisture, and that seed's just going to lay in there and rot because the medium doesn't dry out quick enough. So you want a soilless mix that's free from competing weeds, but you want it to be able to absorb water, and you want to make sure you have good airflow through that medium too. I use Bobo's BM Ken.
6 is fluffier and loose. The 7 has like bark in it and stuff. So.
Right, and I use that for my seeds and my regular potted plants too. I just go and buy 3 or 4 bags, and I mean, when I walk in, they already know what I want. So anyway, and it's fair. It's very reasonably priced, and but you don't want to go out. Go out in the yard, dig up some dirt, plant your seeds that you're going to be growing in the house. Now, I'm not talking about direct planting like green beans and squash or anything. I'm talking about we're growing now seeds in a pot before we put out in the ground. It just is too heavy. It's not going to dry out quick enough, and it's going to be too compact for your airflow. Types of soilless mix, you can make your own. I just go and buy it. There for a while I was going to make my own everything when I can drive the Bobos, let down the tailgate of my truck, and load it up. Okay, how do you say? I'm just saying. Thank you for making light. Is lightweight and holds large amounts of water to absorb the nutrients from fertilizer, other soil components, and releases gradually into the plant. It provides a great environment for root development. The better your root development is, the better chance your plant has to make it to survive. Perlite is a natural product from pop volcano ash, or you can take the easy way out and do a soilless seed mix from the store. Avoid peat moss. It's chunky and it's too hard to moisten, so it's just too heavy. Okay, here's your recipe if you want to make a soilless mix. There's a recipe for you. See, see how light that is in that. This is an internet picture. And you can also propagate that way. It's a good way to propagate if you're wanting to take cuttings. And so, is anybody writing that down? Y'all through? Okay. Containers. Now, you can spend as much money as you want on containers, or you can just save anything from these. Depends on how you want, how you want to do it. My most favorite containers that I've ever used have been the clamshells that you buy like fried pies come in at Brookshire's or donuts or whatever, and they've had the little pop thing where you can just open the lid, or the two little dotted things on you snap it down, because you get a lot of humidity that way. Those are excellent. One thing you kind of need to keep in mind with the different containers, using different kinds, if you're under your light cart, is you could take up wasted space, and anything under your cart is precious real estate under there. I went out, I used to do all these here when I first started, but when I got my light cart, I bought Pacific trays that fit in the light cart, that there's no wasted space under there. But you can see where if you have all different kinds, well, now if every one you have was like that or whatever, but you tendency to collect all these different shapes and sizes, and you can take up valuable real estate underneath your light. So anyway, egg cartons, milk cartons. They suggest on the milk cartons to slice them horizontal, not take the top off, but to slice it horizontal, and so that way it's not so deep. Aluminum disposable pans, those are great. That now, if you had every one the same size, it would work just about as well as the plastic trays that I had to. Plastic gallon jugs, household discards, and plastic seedling trays, which is what I have. Know your frost-free days. Now, y'all, I want y'all to write this down. You need to know now. Geez, we've had some pretty hairy-carry weather here in the last couple of years. But your frost-free days will let you know, okay, I want to plant impatiens and I want to grow impatiens. You'll count back 6 weeks. It takes about 6 weeks from the time you plant to the seed till you can put it out in your flower bed or garden or whatever. So you just need to it gives you a date to count back from. And so it's good dates to know. So we risk having a frost from November the 16th to March the 19th. We will receive our first frost somewhere between December the 8th and February the 25th. Now this is Centerville. It's not Huntsville, it's not Bryan. This is Centerville's frost. Okay, you can pretty well say we're not going to get a frost anywhere from April the 10th to October the 25th. So we have 242 days of frost-free days on the average. But anyway, those dates are really, really, really good to know when you're starting seeds. And what the problem can end up being if you start them too early, especially, you've got these seedlings under your cart that are hitting the light, and you need to do something with them, but you still could risk a freeze in the next couple of weeks, and you have nowhere to, you want to put them. You need to time it, try to time it, where you can get these seeds outside and start growing them outside a little bit before they go into the ground. So just a quick guide on vegetable seeds. Onions, you need to plant them 4 to 6 weeks before the last frost. This is seeds, not the little bundle of onions. Peppers, 8 to 12 weeks before the last frost. Eggplant, 6 to 8. Tomatoes, 6 to 8. And this is just an example of how different each vegetable planting dates are to reaching maturity date. So, read your seed package before planting your seeds, which we'll go over a seed package in just a minute. Your seed package has a wealth of information on it. And it's serious. It means it. It's not just, oh, I don't have to do this. Well, I mean, all that information is there for a reason. Labels. Oh, I cannot stress enough about labeling. You think you're going to remember it? I'm here to tell you. If you've got up to like I may have 40, 50, 60, sometimes 100 plants in my greenhouse. And it's like, okay, what variety was, I'm setting celebrities here, and I'm going to set Romas here, and you're not going to remember. You're not. Or you might have a meddly husband who will go in there and switch stuff around, and then now you're like, oh my gosh, what have you done? That happens to me every year. My stuff gets mixed up, and it's not necessarily me. I use wooden popsicle sticks. Venetian blinds are good to use. Strips of plastic jugs. Ready-made labels from the garden center. Those can get to be expensive. So, but, you know, they are available. Write on the letter for each container before planting. It is so easy to get your seeds mixed up. Now, Novaline, I'm thinking you have a very unique labeling system. Is it you that has like, you put alphabet letters or something, and in that letter, is that you?
That's not me, but I would add one other thing that I use. I very often purchase at Sam's these big boxes of knives, forks, and spoons. And you never use all the knives. And I have found that a plastic knife that I still have to buy more forks and spoons, but I've got knives left over. Those are my good choice of labels.
Maybe not.
And another point is that Sharpies, regular Sharpies fade in sunlight.
Yes.
There is a kind of pen that most of the seed catalogs offer that you can buy that's like a Sharpie, but it's a different kind of ink, and they don't fade. And they're more expensive than a Sharpie, but you only use them for that one purpose.
Right.
And they're worth
right.
it.
I have actually had where my label weathered away and couldn't figure out what the plant was. So that's very true. And you don't have to like put the whole name on it. And I don't know where I thought Novaline did this, but for the
Everything's on the computer.
yes. And that way you're not writing the whole. So A means champion tomatoes. B means.
I have a grid that I keep on the side. And
Very
then if the seeds don't germinate for whatever reason, I can just plug the new one in there and remark it. And then
Right. Anybody else have any ideas on labeling? Because it is a necessary chore. It is very necessary that you do that. Unless you want a big surprise. Okay. Another thing that's very important that you need to know if you're going to be growing seeds is the difference between scarification and stratification. So, scarification is some seeds have a hard seed coat, and you're going to need to kind of break that a little bit. Sometimes soaking that seed in water overnight will do it. Other times you need to file it a little bit. Generally, I just soak mine in water, and I have fairly good luck with that. But the seed coat just needs, eventually the water will penetrate through that seed coat, or the moisture if you plant it. But if you want to get it up and going, if you just kind of give it a little bit of help, that will, okra is one of them that we always soak overnight before we plant it. Stratification, which a lot of y'all may not even realize this, I didn't. Actually, I didn't even realize this one till there was an internet. But is exposing your seeds to cold conditions to trigger germination. Now your seed packet's going to have that on there. You may have to give that seed a cold treatment before it's going to germinate. Kathy?
We used to try to plant okra in Alvin in the gumbo, and they would never germinate. And my mother-in-law said, "Oh no, you have to put them in an ice cube tray in water and put them in the freezer and plant the ice cube with the seed in it in order to get them to germinate." And once we started doing that,
And that's a good idea. Did everybody hear that? Okay, her mother-in-law, Kathy's mother-in-law, would take an okra seed and fill up an ice tray, an old-fashioned ice tray, and plant her okra seed in that, put it in the freezer and freeze it for how long? Did you do the 6 weeks or just?
no, just even a few days.
Right, and then she would pop the ice cube out and plant the ice cube, and that helped the moisture get through that hard seed coat and plant it. And
They were old school.
yeah. Okay, so sometimes a plant needs cold conditions before you plant it. So the solution is plant seeds in a moistened medium and place the container in a plastic bag in the refrigerator for a required amount of time. This does not mean take the seed package and put it in the refrigerator, because what you're doing there is just storing your seeds to next year. You actually plant the seeds in the medium and then put it in the refrigerator. That's the only way it's going to work. It's got to have that moisture and that dirt in there to work. It's the best way to get milk seeds to germinate. That's the only way I've ever gotten them to germinate. But so just now, I don't know. It's if you're going to need probably a second refrigerator. We have 2 houses, and it's not uncommon to walk into the other house and open up the refrigerator. It's just, oh my God, there's just trays of dirt in here. So you might have to be careful if your only refrigerator is the one you use. But anyway, so just remember that the seed package going in the freezer is not stratification. So. Okay, preparing the container for seed trays. You need to fill the container with your soilless mixture. What I like to do, I went and bought a tote, one that, I don't know, it's about like this. It's not real deep. I dump my soilless mix in the container. It's not a tote, really, it's more of a container. And I go ahead and pre-moisten it in that, so I do a bunch at one time in that container. Then I fill up my trays or 4-inch pots, whichever I'm using, and then I plant the plants in. But I always pre-moisten, because when you go to water that seedling, if you're taking it from the initial tray into the 4-inch pot, you're just, the water's just going to dump that in, the seedling's just going to collapse over. So I try to make sure my potting, and even with seeds, that is pre-moistened ahead of time so that you're not messing with anything. And then you'll need to water it a little bit on top, but not like if it was dry.
I know when I was planning out the propagation up in Utah, they said a lot of people don't realize when you pre-moisten, sometimes they'll get it too wet.
Yes.
You want it so you can create a ball with
Yes.
it, but it doesn't drip a lot of water out.
Right, as a wrung out sponge is what I always, as a wrung out sponge. So moisten the medium with water, make sure the seeds have been properly prepared, have the seed packet handy for reference in case you jotted any notes on the back or anything. And then, now this is going to be for a tray. Scatter the seeds over the entire surface, and the seed packages will tell you how deep to cover your seed. And that's another, you need to follow the instructions. Too deep, too shallow could affect whether you get germination or not. And then some seeds do require light to germinate. That's when you're just gonna sprinkle them on top, put no medium over them, cover it. I always cover mine with press and seal, and then put it under your light card. And so others need darkness, which if it needs darkness, that just means covering the seedling up with soil. Spacing is important, that seedlings don't compete with each other. The seed package will tell you that, and it'll also tell you that you may have to thin once they're germinated. General rule of thumb on spacing is fine seeds are at 1/8 inch apart, medium 1/2, and large 1 inch apart. A very fine seed with sand, use a shaker to cover the surface. So what that means is if you got real fine seed, mix it with sand, get you a salt shaker or one of those Parmesan shakers, and then just shake it out over the top of your tray. That way you'll somewhat get them evenly dispersed through the tray. I start mine, I do mine first in the little trays. I don't try to get them too crowded, but I don't worry about it, because once they get true leaves, I go in there and separate them. And I've never lost a seedling to separating. I've lost some to damping off, but I've never, so I just let them get that grow however they grow, and then I take a plastic fork, make sure each seedling has enough roots on it, and then plant each one of those in a 4-inch pot. That may not be the best, but what works for me.
Charlene, I learned something that worked. Separating the seedlings, because I planted like 17,000 tomato seedlings. I was like, oh my God. But anyway, she had them in trays, and then she pretty much swamped them. I'm like, oh my gosh, these are going to drown. But then we separated, and we took the fork, but they were so much easier to pull out because they were swamped.
And
I
that's
took each one.
right.
But yeah, if you wet them really heavy, they'll come out a lot easier.
And that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up too, real quick. Anytime before you go to transfer your seeds, either from the tray or from the 4x4 to the gallon, and from the gallon to the ground, be sure you water them, that they are good and moist. You take a dry seedling from a pot, and now from a plastic pot, it will recover fairly well. May take a couple of days, but if you want your seedling to just go from one pot to the other and just take a good deep breath so it can spread its roots out really well, make sure it's moist. If it's dry when you do that, it already does not, you've already got a leg behind. And especially when you put it in the ground, it's going to definitely lay out. And I have had seedlings not even recover when I planted them in the ground from them not getting in too big of a hurry, and when they weren't moist when I put them in the ground. Even if when you put them in the ground you're going to water them anyway, it still doesn't, they need to be moist when you go to plant them. I always cover my container, whether they need to be in darkness or light. I use press and seal. That can be, I know press and seal is expensive, but you can use it more than once. So, or damp newspaper, which would be a lot more economical. Enclose the container in a plastic bag. I like the press and seal because you can see when that little seedling pops up out of the ground. All you need is one. When you have one pop up, take the cover off, and the rest of them aren't far behind. But as soon as I see just the break of the ground, sometimes you can just see looks like a little baby miniature gopher was right there, and you know that's where that seed's going to just pop up. But like I said, I like the press and seal, and I just save it. I pull it off my container, and I just put it on top of my light, on top of the light card, and just line them up. And then when I do my second round of seeds, like I said, you can use it more than once. But you do need to cover your seed, that moisture. They need that humidity and moisture. Factors of germination, it's critical time in the life of a seedling is the period just before it breaks dormancy. Seeds don't need rich soil mixture to germinate. They got everything they need in that little bitty seed till true leaves. Seeds need water, air, temperature, and light. Emergence occurs as the baby plant breaks out of the seed coat and the stem rises out of the soil. I didn't make that up. I got that out of the book, but I thought that was so cool. There we go, your codlins. This is the first leaves that a seed will appear. This is their first leaves. They're not true leaves, they're first leaves. When I first started, I did not realize that, and I would have these seeds come up and I'm like, that looks nothing like them, and they all look the same. So, but you can see, I hate that cut that off, but look how it just, little by little, and you almost see the root system getting bigger and bigger. So once the true leaves appear, the codlin leaves will drop off, and sometimes it takes them a while to do it. The other favorite thing that I absolutely love is when it's at this point and this point, and it's still holding on to the seed kernel, you know, it's still wrapped around. I don't know, I just think that's gorgeous when the seed kernel is still kind of hanging on for dear life. Now here is a light card. You can do this inexpensively, or you can pay as much money as you want to. I started out with this light card right here, this one, because I wasn't for sure if I was skeptical if I could even do it, and I was still skeptical about the light thing. So anyway, this is the trays that I use to grow. But anyway, I had this, and I still have it, and it still works. So this is, these used to be inexpensive. They're not anymore. Now you can build your own. All you need is a light. You can use one of those shop lights, you know, and get the LED bulbs, you know. For years I used regular fluorescent bulbs, and they work great. I do the LED now, but you know, it's, you know, like I said, it just needs to look similar to this. I think, Noveline, you grow yours in your chicken coop? Do you still grow seeds in your chicken?
I used to have chickens in the greenhouse. I use, mine are shop lights.
And just, like I said, you know, you do not have to go to a big expense on this. There's mine. That was my dream light card, and I spent part of my inheritance on that. Much to my husband's dismay, it's in the bedroom. So here, right now, I don't have anything, no, I don't have any seeds or anything growing, but they'll come with this tray here. And then, you know, then you can buy separate. That way you don't run the risk of water getting on your carpet or floor if it's in the house. And then I have trays, 5 trays. I can grow 10 plastic trays that I bought to go with that. So here I just have some amaryllis I'm trying to force, and all this other stuff is cuttings I'm doing for the plant sale. So anyway, I don't have anything under there now as far as like growing seed.
Where'd you get that one at?
This is a plumerias. A plumeria.
Where'd you get that one at, Harpy? Or?
I got it at Garden Supply,
Okay.
and it was expensive.
Yeah, I pulled
So,
up at Burpee when I did that.
yeah. But I use mine year round, If I don't have seedlings growing, I have plants growing, or I have propagation. So I wanted the 3-tier, but I have wanted this thing since I was in my early 20s. So, and that's just another picture. And another cool thing about how this is set up here, I can actually grow plants on the shelf because shade type plants that don't like a lot of light, enough of that go, and so I can double my plant volume there by growing some on the shelf next to it. So, okay, light. And comes the light part of it. The light is so important when it comes to seedlings. It really, really is. You've got to have the light or you're not going to have a healthy seedling. So to kind of make you understand it a little better, light may appear to be white, but it's actually a rainbow of colors, which I think we all know that. Full spectrum of light has different effects on plants. So the green and yellow light, the chlorophyll in the plant reflects green and yellow and light, which I think we know that from the fallen leaves in the fall. And the orange and red stimulate stem and leaf growth. The violet and blue encourages low, stocky growth. And that's what you're going for, low, stocky growth. Not stretched out to the sun. Infrared light stimulates germination of some seeds. Fluorescent light comes closer than any other artificial light in duplicating the spectrum of sunlight. So, anyway, I thought that was interesting, and it kind of helped you understand the different colors of the light, what the plant uses them for. Okay, plants need a period of darkness to manufacture starches and sugars. These are the components of growth. Plants do not rest at night, they digest and grow. Of course, I don't know, what's your opinion of that, Noveline? I've actually read different, that plants rest or don't rest.
Well, they're doing different activities, and they're doing things. No, they're not doing things at night that they can do in the light. They don't stop. They just stop doing one part of photosynthesis.
And that's a good.
But they actually need light-dark alternative to, particularly if you're trying to get them to mature and flower. So having a timer on your lights to where they get a period of darkness is better than leaving the lights on
24,
24/7.
right.
So how much darkness do you recommend?
Well, we're fixing to get there, but go ahead, Noveline.
You go.
So mine, since it's in the bedroom, when I get ready to go to bed, I just walk to the light card, turn it off, and get into bed. I don't have mine on the timer.
Mother Nature.
Transplanting, stimulation, it stimulates the feeder roots, gives space to grow, and at that point in time you can put it in a richer potting soil if you want to. Like I said, I use the same thing for the seeds that I use when I bump them up into a bigger container. Be sure to water your seedlings good before transplanting, which I covered that a while ago. Place your soil in a container about halfway up. So I just, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. It just depends on what you think is faster and what you're comfortable with. I fill mine halfway up, drop the seedlings in there, then I come back and hold them with my finger and fill the container up the rest of the way. I feel like that goes faster for me than filling one up. I'll do 18 at a time, and I'll just fill them up and then just lay the plants in there, all 18, come back, hold them with my finger and fill them up, rather than fill it up halfway, plant the plant, go to the next. I just feel like that's too time consuming. But anyway, gently lift the seedling with a plastic fork, which I do that when I go to separate. I use a plastic fork to cut around separating the plant. And place it in the middle of the pot, hold the seedling with one hand and pour potting soil around it. Gently press it around the seedling and water with a gentle nozzle. And sometimes you'll see growth in less than a week. They get in there and they're just like, oh my gosh, this is great. But anyway, you do need to kind of be careful with them, but I mean, you know, they're pretty resilient, really. And if you can see up here, these here are the codlins, and those two in the middle is the true leaf. And this is an internet photo. And the ones in the middle are the true leaves, and you can see the kind of the container. Now my container would have had a whole lot more plants in there than that one does. How am I doing on time? Okay, fertilizer. Fertilizer is a necessity that should not be overdone. So, let's say weak, W-E-A-K, weekly, W-E-E-K-L-Y. So, on the when you're doing plants, seedlings and stuff, half the strength of fertilizer. If you can use an organic one, when I have worm castings, I'll use my worm castings. If not, I use fish emulsion. I don't use anything any stronger than that until either I plant them up into a gallon or they go into the ground. When I plant them, take them from a 4-inch pot up to a gallon, I'll pour half soil. I use Osmocote, the time release, place the plant on that, fill it back up, and I will use a time release at that point. But when they're still either in the 4-inch pots or if you can go organic would be good, if not half the strength. Watering is some powerful stuff. It can nourish your plants or it can kill them. I'm an overwaterer, so I have to be really, really careful. And I think I'm not for sure, in one of my deals I use a soil meter. You know, I've been growing plants since I was 17 years old. I'm 62 years old, and I've just decided, you know what, no, I'm 65. My sister just turned 62. I use a soil deal, and I just have so much more success. It doesn't mean you're a failure if you have to use that apparatus. It just really does help you in monitoring, because you think that plant may need water and it doesn't. And with the meter comes a little booklet that tells you, okay, you know, this plant likes to be at number 4, this plant likes to be at number 6. I know that's kind of going down the rabbit trail, but if you're having trouble with overwatering, and they're very cheap, strongly a soil meter is very, very helpful. It's a good idea to use, lukewarm water for your seedlings. Those of you who have a well know that water comes out of that well mighty cold. If your water is chlorinated, just let it set overnight, it'll evaporate. Soft water contains a large amount of sodium, so you might want to keep that in mind. Water from the bottom gets water quickly to the roots and avoids surface damage. I do have some plants that I will only water from the bottom. I don't know, I get lazy and, it's like, I got to do this other stuff too. Let's just get them watered. But anyway, watering from the above can carry nutrients down through the soil to the roots. So, and then top dress as needed. Humidity is also a very important thing. There again, that's why you cover them when you're trying to get them to emerge, the seeds. Humidity is the amount of moisture in the air. Plants suffer when the humidity falls below 30%. And that's really good to know, that they need at least 30%. Plants are at their best when the humidity is between 50 and 70%. Misting only temporarily helps. Although I do mist, they say, I've read where it doesn't help at all, and then I've read where it kind of does. You'll have to judge if it makes a difference for you. The best way to increase humidity is to set a plant in a container that holds 1 inch of pebbles. Put some water in that, just be sure it's not going into your pot. The discrepancy on that is it doesn't work, and some people swear by it. It works for me. I use it on my orchids and so a few other plants, and I don't know. I think it works, but the theory is as the water evaporates, it creates humidity going up through the air. There is plant humidifiers that you can buy that can increase the humidity in your house if you, and that's mostly for house plants. If you're growing house plants, you can increase the humidity. Damping off, and this is just such a heartbreaker. So you get your plant to a certain point, and you walk into wherever you have them, and the plant just is laying over, and something's happened to it right up just above the soil level just a little bit, and it's just flopped. It almost has an appearance to me sometimes that something might have chewed on it, but that is called damping off. And it doesn't happen to me very often, but it does happen from time to time. You don't get much warning. The plant just collapses, and the stem withers away at the stem level. And the solution is you need to maintain good air circulation. That's when you really know you didn't have really good air circulation. So when you have the seedlings in the tray, you don't really have to worry about it as much, but like when you've got them in the 4x4s and you're setting them, lining them up, you need to kind of spread them out just a little bit so that they have good air circulation. Overcrowding, you don't want your seedlings to be overcrowded. Make sure that your soilless mix is sterile. The ones that you buy in the bag, it is sterile. It is going to be sterile. If you're making it yourself, just to make sure, just buy it. That's what you need to do. Pre-soaked seeds in a small amount of water containing 2 crushed up garlic cloves. I think the next slide is the recipe. That is a spray that you can spray on your seedlings to prevent damping off. Let's see. I have it somewhere. Let me just go back to it. So it's 2 crushed garlic cloves, I think in a gallon of water. Troubleshooting, leaf curl, too much fertilizer. So if you see your leaves curling up, you've got too much fertilizer. Yellowing of the lower leaves is a lot of times a magnesium deficiency. Dropping leaves is exposed to gas. I'm going to say there's other reasons that they may drop their leaves, but leggy plants, insufficient light, and crowding. Mold, you have poor drainage. If you see, every once in a while I'll have a little bit of mold on the top of my seedlings. Seeds fail to sprout because the temperature is too high or too low. Soil was allowed to dry out. Seeds are planted too deep or they're old and poorly stored. you know, you can test if your seeds are good or not by taking a wet paper towel, sprinkling a few seeds, fold it over, put it in a Ziploc bag, set it in your windowsill for a couple of days, and you can see what your germination rate is. 1 or 2 sprout, and so you put 15 and only 1 or 2 sprouted, those seeds are too old, I wouldn't even mess with them. But that's a way to know if your seeds are too old.
Do you ever use the heated pads to?
No, and I'm glad you brought that up. I don't, and it's only because I just haven't invested in them. Normally you do, don't you?
Yeah.
And that will get,
You don't what?
oh, okay, I don't use the heated pads. And it's not because I'm against them, I just haven't invested in any yet. And,
I would say if you're going to get them, be sure they have thermostat on them, or monitor it that you're not getting too much heat. You may have to raise your pan, your tray, up off the heating pad and get some circulation under there, because some that I have actually will get them too warm. But I think they do a lot of good. I'm not sure that you get a higher percentage, but you get faster germination by far.
And the one that I have has a thermostat that says, like you were saying, goes into your soil and it just regulates it for you. So you don't have to
That's the
raise-
best.
Yeah,
that's cool, yeah. Like I said, I do recommend them, I just haven't invested in them yet. So, anyway, lack of light, you know, on the seeds could fail to sprout. Okay, I normally, on the light, I leave my light card on for about between 13 and 16 hours a day. So I turn it on first thing when I get up in the morning, and I turn it off when I go to bed at night. But they need to have at least 13 hours of light, seedlings do. The garlic spray is blend 1 garlic clove with 1 quart of water. Is the recipe on to help the damping off. So, okay. So how to read a seed package, which is you can get if you got some seeds, you know, a while ago, you can kind of look at the seed package. But the seed package is going to tell you almost everything that you need to know. It's got important information on it to know at the starting of the time, at the time that you want to plant. The year the seeds were packed, it tells you that. Because you need to know, is your seeds getting old? Just because, you know, seeds that were packed for 2022, on all the seeds, it doesn't mean they're no good. They may last 3 to 5 years, but how are you going to know, you know, if you don't have a starting date? So all the seeds do have a date that they were packed. They contain a lot number, which I put recall, and after I was too lazy to go back and fix it. Actually, I think that lot number would be better used if there was a crop failure and they were like, okay, all the seeds in this particular lot are no good. And so it'll give you a lot number so that you'll know. I know on Wilhake one year, man, they had, it was during one of the drought seasons we had, man, the crop failures that they had was, not all their seeds, but they had some crop failures on that year. And it tells you if the seeds are American Select, disease resistant, certified, organic, etc., etc. It will also, on the diseases, I didn't want to put up a slide of all the diseases, especially on tomatoes, but inside, most of the time inside your seed catalog will be a graph or a guide that will tell you what what those particular FFST means or whatever. It's usually in your seed catalog. You can find, you know, what each one of those diseases are, that it'll tell you. the days to maturity, the days to germinate, the depth, the number of seeds per package. So sometimes you'll get 1,000 seeds and sometimes you'll get 5. So you definitely need to know how many seeds are in the package. Any special instructions that may go with that seed. And this should have been first, and I didn't know how to switch it from down there to up there. But it has the Latin name and the description of the plant. And it is very important, you know, every time I do one of these, I'll do Latin name, you need to at least recognize the Latin names on it. Because you're going to think you're planting one plant and somebody else is going to give you seeds and they think that plant's something else, and you're going to end up growing something that you had no intentions of growing because you went by the common name and not the Latin name. So you don't have to know or speak them, but you kind of need to kind of recognize some of the Latin names on plants and seeds as far as that goes. So, okay, this is why you grow from seed. One of the most satisfying things you will ever do. And this is one of the seedling emerging. And look, it's got the little hairs hanging off of it. And the seed kernel is still on there. That is, I get so excited every time I see that. I mean, it's amazing. And then the codlin leaves emerge before the true leaves appear. So you can see here, that's what those look like. And on every once in a while you can see just in the middle the true leaves kind of emerging there. And this is planting seedlings in the 4x4s or the 4-inch once the true leaves appear. So these are tomatoes, and there's your true leaves right there. This one's still hanging on to a codlin. This one still only has that, or that may be basil. I don't. But you can see these I just got through planting those at one particular point in time, and that's kind of what they'll look like when you take them from the tray to the 4-inch pot for a couple of days maybe, but it won't take them long, and they'll be standing up and looking like what I call little oak trees. This, and then the other thing, you get little surprises sometimes in your greenhouse. I had a little tree frog there. I believe this is lemon balm that I was growing, and he stayed in there for I don't know how long, but he was my little friend for a couple of days. And then there's just a bigger picture of an Indy key in there. And this is when I repotting plants into 1-gallon containers several weeks before planting them in the ground. The bigger the plant is before you plant, the better chance it has to make it. Store plants in 4x4s do better when repotted into gallons for several weeks. So you can see, now these I bought, these are store-bought. These are some tomatoes and some peppers, and that's about how big I'll get them and then take them into gallons from that point. Then, miracle of nature. This is what you get in the end, you know, from growing seeds. Although the squash and the green beans would have been sown directly into the ground, but anyway. That's what you're trying to achieve in the very end. If you're growing vegetables, flowers, you get the flower. And then this is my summer kitchen table, and I look forward to it every year. So this is, if you ever come to my house and it's garden season, we never eat at the table because it is always full of tomatoes or whatever. I had just canned and those tall, must have canned salsa that day in those tall jars. And that's it.